Jonathan Young.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to acknowledge the member from West Coast Tasman, Damien O'Connor, and the support that he's offered his community during this very difficult time over these last number of years. Sir, acknowledging the tragic loss and the gaps in the health and safety regime has been something that this government, and I'm sure all New Zealanders, do with utter sincerity. Sir, in respect of those who lost their lives and also in respect of those families, of course, who lost their loved ones. Mr. O'Connor said in his opening remarks in the early 2000s, they began to see, I assume the government or the industry no doubt, began to see the failings in the health and safety regime in underground mining. And I guess our response to that statement is, at that particular point in time, his party was in government. And we would look not for retrospective criticism, but proactive action when people see those issues. Sir, also one other point, legislation is not necessarily the process to do the checks. Even though I understand what the member's saying, the annual review of perhaps WorkSafe New Zealand, maybe he can sub on next time that happens, is the time, I think, where accounts can be asked for regarding the implementation of legislation that is being put in place to make our workplaces safer. Sir, we understand, of course, that that tragic day, 19th of November 2010, 31 miners and contractors were present in the mine. 2 miners managed to walk from the mine and went to hospital with moderate injuries. They were released from Greymouth Hospital the next day, but the remaining 16 miners and 13 contractors sadly lost their lives. So immediately following that event, days after, in November 2010, the Prime Minister ordered a Royal Commission of Inquiry led by Justice Graham Pankhurst. And while Justice Pankhurst was undergoing this Royal Commission of Inquiry, the government also commissioned a review of health and safety practices in New Zealand. And from that, sir, we have this report, the report of the Independent Task Force on Workplace Health and Safety, which I no doubt you are familiar with. Sir, that group was chaired by Rob Jager, Chairman of the Shell Companies here in New Zealand. Sir, an industry that is very, very familiar with hazardous situations. And Shell as a company pride themselves, sir, as international best practice in that particular field, and he was the right man for the job. Though initially the Royal Commission report was due to come back in March 2012, obviously we know it was a very extensive Commission of Inquiry, and it finally came back on the 30th of October 2012 with Justice Pankhurst reported to the Attorney General, Honourable Chris Finlayson. And sir, not long after that, that report was made public, and people obviously scrutinised it, and on the 5th of November that was the case. The Royal Commission, as the Honourable Member has said, came up with 16 recommendations, and the second of which was this, and sir, it is in the bill which the member has presented to the House. An effective and regulatory framework for underground coal mining should be established urgently. And the Commission did refer to Queensland and New South Wales framework examples as demonstrating international best practice. So one of the commissioners of the Royal Commission was Stuart Bell, who was the Queensland State Commissioner for Mine Safety and Health. And so it was important, sir, to bring that expertise over to New Zealand at that time as we underwent this Commission of Inquiry to look at the factors that led up to this tragedy that happened in Pike River. On the 12th of December 2012, the government released its plan to implement all 16 of those recommendations. And sir, as I said before, in April 2013, 4 months later, this report came out. So one of the things I think that this report states is that New Zealand's culture in workplace health and safety was very lacking. If we look at international figures, for example, for 100,000 of population in the United Kingdom, 1 worker per 100,000 a year would lose their lives in the workplace. Here in New Zealand, for that same 100,000 population, we would lose 4 in the workplace. So obviously we know there's something that is happening in New Zealand that needs addressing, and it's attitudes, it's culture, it's practices and behaviour. And so I believe that as we, in due course in this House, look at the Health and Safety Reform Bill, we will be able to address some of those issues that will make New Zealand a safer place for people to work in, and certainly to come home from their day of work and enjoy their families and their homes. So after this report that came out in April 2013, a month later in May 2013, and also after the Royal Commission and the government's response to that came out, we see 2 significant reports that came from the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment. And so it is this report. It's Safe Mines and Safe Workers. So it is the discussion document summary. Its subtitle says, Implementing Recommendations of the Royal Commission on the Pike River Coal Mine Tragedy. And some of the sections are, have your say. Not your say, sir, but the people say. We are seeking your feedback. A new regulatory approach, training and qualifications, worker participation and emergency management. So we see, sir, from the Pike River Royal Commission, from the Independent Task Force, that some very, I guess, forensic work has been done into workplace activities and behaviours. Then 4 months later, sir, came the response to the submissions. This document from MB. They reported they received 113 submissions by the 1st of July 2013 deadline, 55 from quarry operators, 21 from mine operators, 7 from individual mine workers, 6 from mining contractors, 2 from unions, 4 from employer or industry organisations, 5 from mining associations, 2 from quarrying associations, 2 from tunnelling associations, 9 from other industries, interested parties and the public. So we see, sir, that the government has canvassed broadly and widely and had significant response in terms of what we should do regarding health and safety, particularly for mining. 1 month later, presented to the House was the member's bill, Underground Coal Mining Safety Bill, under the name of Damien O'Connor. As he said, sir, for some time, no doubt, had been in the ballot, waiting to be drawn. And, sir, we do understand his intent and his response to what happened in his part of the country. And so, sir, we do just acknowledge that. Sir, I'm sorry if you think that I'm looking at notes, but I am just reading out a chronology here that I think is important for the record. Then in December 2013, MB released a further document. Here it is here, sir. It's Safe Mines, Safe Workers, New Laws on Mining, Health and Safety, a quick guide for mine operators. But what they say in this is don't just rely on the guide, go and read the legislation. So I think what they are addressing is the fact that people do not delve deep enough into the issues around health and safety. And what they state here, sir, in the introduction, it says the government has recently made changes to the laws concerning health and safety in the mining industry. This is in response, obviously, to the Royal Commission and, sir, and the tragedy that obviously happened in Pike River and to the families there. So they say the new legal requirements have been developed with help from an expert reference group of mining, health and safety and regulatory experts from New Zealand and abroad. The government has also worked closely with people in the industry. So as I conclude, what I want to say is that the government does care immensely about the safety of miners and workers and contractors, and sir, we have demonstrated that, sir, by passing sound legislation to ensure their workplaces. Order. Thank you, sir.
I regret the time has come for me to leave the chair. The House stands adjourned until 2 p.m. tomorrow. The debate is interrupted. Sit down for further consideration next sitting day.